Bonjour, bienvenue dans cet épisode de Conversation avec Xavier. Et aujourd'hui, je vais avoir une conversation avec Hemant RANGAN. So I'm going to switch in English because today we are going to talk in English because my guest is speaking English and we are going to talk with Hemant. And we are going to talk about the Indian mind at work. And I love this idea of the Indian mind at work. I guess, Hemant, you are a specialist of the Indian mind at work. Could you tell us a little something?
Certainly. First of all, namaste.
Namaste.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't call myself a specialist. These are just some of my ideas and views, which I have expressed in the book.
Okay.
So, yeah. So it is just a book which is born out of my professional experience, as well as my personal study. Okay. During, or rather, let me say, over 20 years of work in different countries with different nationalities and studying the dynamics between Indians and the different nationalities.
Okay, so can you tell us what is exactly your book, The Indian Mind at Work, about, and what is the purpose of the book, and maybe why you decided to write it?
Okay, yeah, we can start from the last part as to why I decided to write it. As I said that for over 20 years, I have been working in various different countries with different nationalities in multinational teams, etc. So I did encounter in my initial days when I used to be a junior project manager, several situations where there was a lot of tension between different nations that were at work. And this tension was primarily due to differences in culture. There were misunderstandings and there was conflict. And on several of these occasions, the conflict, which started off with a very little cultural difference, almost derailed the entire engagement. So that kind of piqued my interest, first of all, in trying to understand and study intercultural dynamics between different countries. I kept doing that, and I kept implementing it during my day-to-day work, and refining it as I progressed also in my own personal capacity, moving on to becoming a project manager and then a program manager and a program owner, etc. So I was able to use this knowledge. But after that, I decided, why not bring this particular knowledge out in the form of a book so that it could also assist others.
Okay, super. That's very nice from you to share your experience to the world through a book, which is always very easy for people to grasp ideas and pick up exactly what they need when they need it.
Yep.
So now maybe we know why. Maybe now you can tell us a bit more about what is the book about.
Yeah. So what makes this book different is, number one, is the structure of the book. So I have basically divided the book into different parts. A foundation, which is a very brief understanding for a layman, for instance, as to why do we really need to understand this field of cultural psychology and how does it help. So there are some very simple examples which will, intuitive examples, which will assist anybody reading the book. You don't have to be an anthropologist to do that. To anybody to understand why we need this and why it is important. So we start with that. Next, we go into the construction. That is, in this book, I have compared, on one hand, the Indian mind, and the other hand, the Anglo-Saxon mind, because it's always good to understand. You can understand more when you study two contrasting things at the same time. Yes. So the flavors come out in a much better manner. So this is what I have done in this book. So we study the Anglo-Saxon culture and we study the Indian culture. We study the differences between the two, and more importantly, we study why these behaviors are enacted by each of these cultures.
Mm-hmm.
A very simple one would be, why is time so important and critical to Anglo-Saxon cultures, and why is time not important to Indians? So the understanding of the why is very important, because that's what brings out the empathy in people to understand the other culture. And this book attempts to bring out all these factors. And the third aspect about the book the third part about the book is an application where you have actual workplace scenarios between Indian and Anglo-Saxon teams, where you study the conflict that arises, and you also go back to the chapters before to bring that knowledge and apply it here. So it's called the application of that knowledge. So in this way, it's a practical tool as well as an academic tool to understand and to actually apply that knowledge. So that's about the structure. About the content, there are certain new concepts in the book, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yes. One of the new concepts is, or rather, let me say, a view or a way of looking at cultures. It is through logic.
Okay, through logic.
Yeah.
You mean, do you mean the logic of people, the logic of thinking, the processes, the
Yes.
like meaning-making processes, or
yes,
the way of making decisions?
Yes, absolutely. Because what happens is logic is connected with communication.
Yeah, sounds. Yeah.
Because logic precedes the communication. So, for instance, Anglo-Saxon cultures are predominantly binary logic oriented. There are usually two answers, you see. It's
Either
a dichotomy.
or not.
Yes. Yeah. But in the Indian mind, it is not so. There is a predominance of a multi-valued logic where there are many truth values. So these two different conflicting ways of thinking lead to different styles of communication. And when these two styles of communication get together, there can be conflict.
Yes, I can imagine that. I'm trying to processing in my mind at the same time you are speaking, and I can imagine. Yes, when it's like a bit, when musicians, one is playing a rhythm, pop, 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 and another one is playing pop, pop, tap, pop, pop, tap, pop, pop, tap, pop, pop, tap, pop. Maybe they can match sometimes. The two rhythms can match, but not all the time. And the one is just pop, pop, pop. It cannot catch everything, the entirety of what the other one is making. And that's making me think about that, what you just explained.
It's also about the particular knowledge in question, because what happens is, see, for instance, I'll give you a very simple example. In binary logic, you have to polarize, isn't it? You have to take a side. You have to say, either, let's take an example. Are you for the death penalty or are you against the death penalty? You have to take a side and you have to debate. But in the Indian way of thinking, everything is okay. You see? So you will often find Indians saying yes to everything. And this causes a conflict, because here there is an expectation of you to be on one side of the pole. And there are multiple reasons as to why these two cultures have developed this kind of psychology. So it lies in the geography, it lies in the history, it lies in the cosmology, in the beliefs, and in many of these aspects. So this book brings out all this as to why. And by the way, this logic is just one of them. So there are certain other concepts also in the book.
So yes, you explained the foundations of the how to say that, the background mindset, the background beliefs, and why things are what they are.
Yes.
Okay. I'm quite curious. Did you have any inspiration? I mean, earlier you told us the why you wrote the book, but I'm curious to know, is there something or some kind of event or some people who inspired you to decide to make the step to write it?
Well, actually, after a long IT career in information technology, I was deciding for a shift. Yeah. And I thought that why not capitalize upon all this knowledge that I have acquired over the years with respect to intercultural interactions. And some of my friends, very esteemed friends, did suggest to me a while ago. They said, you are doing a lot of research, you're doing a lot of thinking about this entire thing. So why don't you write a book?
Oh, okay. That's very simple. So it's it comes from it comes in a friendly manner, if I could say.
Correct. Yes. But of course, it was a germ and a seed of an idea that was dormant in my brain for a while. But when this unfortunate situation of COVID-19 began, then I thought, let me use the time to write.
Yes, that's an excellent way to make a good use of the time we have with this COVID thing. And obviously, at the time we are speaking now in March 21, it's still not over yet, and maybe not yet over for the next few months. And I don't know how things are going to move on. I personally just expect that we are going to go out of these things like and recover as much as we can. Okay, I had a last question, Hemant, for you.
Sure.
Let's say I'm watching this video, this interview, and I think, yes, that's kind of interesting. But I would like to know what I'm going to be able to achieve at the end of reading the book. Did you wrote the book also in this idea that the people can achieve something at the end?
Yes, definitely. So there are multiple purposes for the book. The book can be useful to academicians.
Okay.
It basically can be useful to anyone who really wants to understand the way the Indian mind and the Anglo-Saxon mind work. And it would obviously, one of the important things during understanding of interactions is it is not enough for you to merely understand the other person or the other culture. You also have to understand yourself and your own culture. You have to understand why you behave like that. So now this also becomes an important tool to Indians to understand themselves better.
Okay.
As well as to Anglo-Saxons. For a very small example, this happened right in front of me. There was a conflict going on. There was a discussion going on about this time conflict, and one of the high-level executives in Rolls-Royce in the UK, he was angry. He was angry. He was shouting. He's saying, "When I talk about time to Indians, when I say it is 5 o'clock, it must be 5. Why don't they get it?"
Yes. And I guess it can upset a lot of people around the world. And I could be upset as well.
Exactly. And then there was an Indian colleague sitting beside me. He was a designer. And he said, why so much stress about time? The sky is not going to fall. You see?
Yeah,
so,
I see.
Yeah.
And can you just tell us a little bit something about the time issue in the Indian mind at work?
It is not an issue. It's a cultural thing. Yeah, it's a cultural thing. So, for example, why do the Anglo-Saxons, why is time so important? Let's start with the weather. So if we look at Europe, say about 1,500 years back when there was no technology, we had 6 to 7 months of winter.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, in Germany, Netherlands, Denmark, where the Anglo-Saxons originated from, and the Jutes, So if there is 6 months of winter, during that winter, there's not much that you can do. During the other 6 months, you have to hunt, you have to find the food, you have to fix your houses, you have to fight wars. There were lots of wars going on. So time is limited, you see, because you have to survive that coming winter. You have to survive that winter.
Yeah,
because once that harsh, terrible winter hits, then you are frozen. You're constrained. You're limited. There's no technology. There are no heaters. There's no air conditioning. So millennia of this kind of behavior, which originates due to geography. So that brings about you an automatic sense of time and resource management. Time is critical already. Yeah. And later on, what happens is when these Anglo-Saxons migrate to Britain in the 5th and 6th century, because they were invited by a Celt king called Vortigern to fight with, to fight as mercenaries. So they conquered Britain, and the Romans had left, but they embraced Christianity. Once they embraced Christianity, Christianity has a notion of one life. Yeah. So you have the fusion now of this thought or notion of time and resource management and one life. So
yes, I start to see where you want to point.
So we have multiple reasons like this, which make this a linear culture, methodical, sequential, time-oriented, one life. So there are multiple reasons, many more, but I'm just keeping it brief. So now if we go back to India at the same period, there are 4 seasons which are clearly defined. There is no harsh winter. Yeah. So it's an agricultural society. Now here in Anglo-Saxon cultures, there's an aversion to winter. You're not looking forward to the winter. You're just trying to fight it and get over it. Okay. But in India, we are looking forward to the monsoon. We're waiting for the rains so the agriculture can bloom, you see. So, and if you're going to sow the seeds today, or if you're going to do it next week, it's okay. So there's no criticality of time already. Yeah. And then this is a cyclic kind of, because nature works in cycles. Yeah. And because we look at the monsoon, we are pro-cyclic. We're waiting for the monsoon. So we become pro-nature. Yeah. And even our philosophies become cyclic. So it's like birth, reincarnation. We can see that things are, we can see destruction in front of our eyes because of these are hot climates. And so then you have this concept of reincarnation, and then you have, this whole cosmology of India runs into cycles and cycles of millions and billions and trillions of years. You see. So time is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. I could have 1 million lives, you see.
Yes, I absolutely understand. Okay. Hemant, thank you very much for explaining all this and presenting us your book. I hope that you are going to be interested in reading this book. You can find it on Amazon, I guess.
Yes.
Yes, so let's go to Amazon and type in the search bar The Indian Mind at Work, and you will find it very easily. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation I had with Hemant. And well, let's see you in another episode. And yes, also, like people used to say, if you like it, like it. If you did not like it, well, do nothing. If you want to comment. If you want to subscribe. Okay, so see you next time. Bye-bye.